Well, good evening. My name is Dwayne Brown with NASA Public Affairs, and welcome to the White House, where it is astronomy night. It's about science, it's about education. And stay tuned to whitehouse.gov. The president will be making remarks at 8 p.m. But right now, we're going to take questions. You participate, talking to someone who knows quite a bit about science and education. It's my pleasure and honor to be joined by Dr. Sally Ride. Dr. Ride, welcome tonight.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here. This is going to be a spectacular night.
It is. A lot of fun and a lot of excitement. And many of you all certainly remember Dr. Ride as being the first American woman in space, but she is doing incredible things when it comes to kids, particularly girls, and getting and exciting the next generation of explorers. And before we take your questions, and don't be shy, folks, send those questions in. This is about science and education. This administration is very passionate about that. NASA is very passionate about that, and certainly Dr. Ride is. So send those questions in. But Dr. Ride, before we do that, could you tell us why it's important to excite that next generation of explorers?
That's easy. I'd love to. You know, the science and technology are the engines that drive our economy. So the economic future of the country actually depends on the next generation of scientists and engineers. And we know that there are a lot of kids out there who really love science, particularly in elementary school. You know, kids are natural scientists, they're naturally curious, they love it, and then they start to drift away from it in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And one of the things that we're going to be doing here tonight is trying to sustain that interest and reminding the middle school students that science really is cool, that it's a great career for them to go on in, and that there are wonderful futures for them. And if they choose to go into those careers, it's a real benefit to all of us in this country.
And Sally, with that, I'm going to go in. Let me tell you, I'm seeing some incredible things here. Folks are saying this is great. They wish they were here. I'm glad I'm here. It's very cool.
I'm glad I'm here.
Very cool. And I want to shout out, can I give a shout out to the new media team? They're the reason why we're here, and they are great. And you guys are going to be hearing and seeing a lot of great things coming from them in the White House. But Sally, may I call you Sally?
Please, please do.
See how cool you can call really cool people the first name. From Lewis, in addition to Galileo scopes, what other types of telescopes will students be using tonight?
They're going to be using a variety of different telescopes, some of them homemade telescopes. I saw a couple of reflectors out there. I saw a Cassegrain telescope, and the whole focus of these is going to be using different telescopes, relatively small telescopes, telescopes that are easy to set up, easy to use, but that'll be trained on objects like Jupiter, like the moon, like some star clusters, and it should be very, very cool. And you know, I heard a story, Sally, that one of the astronomers actually used the money from his paper route to build his telescope. I just thought that was amazing. That's a good one.
That is a good one. Okay, let's take another question from John. Looking back on your journey in space, looking down on Mother Earth, how did your philosophy change, or if it changed, about space travel?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, the view of Earth from space is absolutely spectacular. It's unbelievable, and the pictures are wonderful, but I have to tell you, they don't do it justice. It took my breath away the first time that I looked back at Earth. And I think that the thing that made the biggest impression to me was how fragile our Earth looks. I remember looking out the window for the first time and seeing this really, really thin royal blue line going all the way across Earth's horizon. And I couldn't figure out what it was for a minute. And then I realized that it was Earth's atmosphere. It looked like somebody had taken just a little blue crayon and just kind of sketched all along the Earth's horizon. And I could not believe how thin it was, how thin our whole atmosphere is. You know, when you stand on the ground and look up, it looks like the air goes on forever. And when you look at it from space, it's really obvious that it doesn't. And when you start to think about how much we depend on our atmosphere, and just take a look at it and see how fragile it is, you know, it really makes you appreciate it. So it did change the way that I viewed our planet.
Wow. Cassandra Rushing, do you have any suggestions for middle school and high school math and science teachers for ways to help students and they're saying especially girls become more interested in math and science?
You know, well, I think the first thing to remember is that that a lot of students, and the statistics show that it's actually 2/3 of the boys and 2/3 of the girls. So a lot of the students in elementary school really like science. They'll tell you that. So when they get to middle school, it's almost as if either peer group pressure or, you know, kind of the idea that, well, it might be geeky and it might be for just lonely people who don't like to communicate with others or whatever, that they start to drift away from science. So the first thing to remember is that there's a natural interest in science. And then I think the second thing to remember is that it's easy to stoke that interest if you can show them connections to the real world, things that mean something to them, either the environment around their community, get them to understand how science helps them understand the environment or around their community, or to get them interested in something like, might there be life on Mars? You know, might there be life on one of the moons of Jupiter? You know, just some things that are just very, very cool that scientists do. And I think the third thing is to show them examples, and a very diverse set of examples, of people who are scientists and the things that those scientists do. Because scientists come in all sizes, all colors, all flavors, and kids don't realize that. They don't realize that there are a lot of women who are scientists in all different fields, a lot of men, representatives from every minority. So there are people who used to look like them who are scientists these days. And that'll help bring it home to the students that these are things that they could do. And also let them know what the scientists are actually working on, because it turns out that it's usually very, very cool things.
That's right, and diversity is the key here. I mean, just like it's very important. I have to tell you, you know, I'm just learning the Facebook thing, and the excitement here is just amazing. There's a question from Jennifer Shear. Dr. Ride, did you ever, this is a good one now, and I've heard you respond to this many times, did you ever experience any resistance in achieving your career goals due to being a female?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I was one of the lucky girls growing up when I grew up. I had parents who were not scientists, who probably had trouble figuring out how they ended up with a daughter who was so interested in science and space. But they thought that if I liked science, that was okay with them, and that they would go ahead and support me, whether it meant taking me to science museums or cool science events, or talking to my teachers and letting them know I was interested in this. A lot of my friends, who were girls, were also interested in science early on, but then started to drift away from it in middle school. And some of them, for reasons that they ran into an obstacle, they met a person who told them science wasn't for girls, their parents didn't think it was appropriate for them. That never happened to me. I never ran into that person that tried to deflect me away from it. Then once I got into college, I had a very good thesis advisor who motivated me and encouraged me. And when I got to NASA, I think NASA actually did a wonderful job of selecting our group of astronauts. When NASA decided that they wanted to bring women into the astronaut corps, they did a smart thing. They didn't just bring one woman in.
Right.
They brought 6 of us in together as part of a group of 35 astronauts. And they also made sure that the 29 men in that group of 35 were comfortable working with women, had no problem with female astronauts. One of the other members of our astronaut class, George Nelson, Pinky Nelson, actually had a female thesis advisor for his PhD. So this was a cohort of people that were actually quite comfortable. When we entered the Johnson Space Center, the people at the Space Center were not quite as used to having women around, and so there was kind of a culture shock there. But we were insulated within a very supportive group.
You know, I understand where you're coming from with NASA. I'm proud to say, and I've been with NASA for a while, you know, the diversity is there, and now we have our first African-American NASA administrator.
We do.
Very
Charlie
cool.
Bolden. It's very cool. He's going to do a great job.
Oh, we're excited to have him. Another question from Patricia Day. Okay, now, this is one of those crystal ball questions. How many solar systems and universes do you think we will discover in the future?
How many solar systems will we discover in the future? Well, universes, you know, that one's beyond my pay grade. I can't even imagine the concept of other universes out there. So let's stick to solar systems, because one of the amazing things over the last, I don't know, 15 or 20 years or so has been that astronomers have started discovering the first planets outside of our solar system. And the first one that they discovered, it was revolutionary. It was amazing. It was the first time that we'd had telescopes and techniques good enough to actually see, you know, a small planet around some other star. Before that happened, we weren't even sure that there were planets around other stars. People thought it made sense, but we hadn't seen any. Then after we discovered that first one, people started discovering more and more and more of them. And now the number is over a couple hundred, I believe, planets that have been discovered around other stars. So it turns out that other solar systems are really, really common. We don't know how common because we can only see them around the nearest stars so far. We don't have the telescopes that are good enough, but we're learning more all the time. So it sounds like there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of solar systems.
Wow. And I want to remind our viewers out there, we're coming to you from the White House. It's astronomy night. It's about science. It's about education. Get your questions in. Next question, Sally, from Nadine Foreman. My 8-year-old daughter would like to know what your favorite constellation.
Let's see, my favorite constellation is Orion. And the reason for that is probably that I can find it so easily. It's prominent in the sky. So it was the first one that I learned, and every time I see it, I remember how much I enjoyed seeing it for the first time.
Wow. Okay, let's go to Giovanna Chapman. What can we as private citizens do to keep the space program going for future generations?
Charlie Bolden would
Yeah,
like to
he
endorse
would.
that.
Yes, yes.
You know, I think that it's really important for private citizens to make it known to their members of Congress, to public officials, you know, to the White House, that they support the space program, that the space program means something to them in their lives, that it's something that they're proud of, and even to be more specific, what parts of the space program do you think are important? What are the ones that provide the most value to the country? Is it earth science? Is it astronomy? Is it the human spaceflight program? Because our space program encompasses a lot of different areas of science, and it's the national space program. I mean, it's the space program of our country. So it's really important that it be the program that the public wants it to be.
Yes, I agree. And I have an old saying, Sally. Well, actually it's not old, but science never sleeps.
I like it.
Here's a question from Liz Warren. Dr. Wright, it seems to me that if parents think that science is hard, their kids probably think so too. How can we get parents educated in basic science so they can help with their kids' homework and inspire them?
Now that's a tough one.
Oh, okay.
Now, I think that you know, people do have this conception that science is hard, and of course science isn't easy, but neither is law. Medicine's not easy. It's not easy to be the CEO of a company. It's not easy to be the President of the United States. You know, there are a lot of things in life that if you're interested in, if you think they bring value to you, if you think you can bring value to that field, that you have to do a little bit of work to be able to make progress in that field and to understand it. And I think that the misconception that you have to be smarter than everybody else to be a scientist is something that we really need to dispel, because there are a lot of people who are brilliant scientists who, you know, in middle school, high school, did a lot of different things, might have focused on sports, might have focused on music, might have focused on English, but discovered a love of science in high school and then worked hard at it and got into it. So I think that the important thing is, you know, don't believe that you need to be brilliant to get into science, to understand science. And for the parents out there, don't think that, you know, if you didn't have a good background in science and you don't understand it as fully as you'd like, there are a lot of good places that you can go to begin to understand some of the basics. The NASA website actually has a lot of good educational information that's very, very accessible, and is probably a good place for parents to look when helping with their students' astronomy homework or a science homework.
Absolutely, and you know, as you said, NASA, the education programs are fantastic. And of course, you've got science careers, you've got engineering careers, but there are all kinds of other careers at NASA that folks. I'm in public affairs, I get to work with cool scientists and astronauts. So science is great, and all the other careers also too. Very cool. The next question is from IB Waver. Dr. Wright, some say that inside every galaxy, this is pretty interesting, there's a black hole. Is it possible to conclude that black holes are actually responsible for galaxies? Yeah. I must be a science teacher. I don't know.
Yeah. Probably not. That's probably can't conclude that. You know, I think that it is true that black holes, massive black holes, have been found to be at the center of many, many galaxies. And this is a fairly recent discovery. I'd say this is the last maybe 15 years or so. You know, even the discovery of black holes it was not that long ago. But the discovery of black holes at the center of galaxies was a relatively recent discovery. So I think that people are still trying to understand. First of all, they're hard to understand the formation of galaxies, when galaxies were born, how they typically form, and how they typically evolve. And I suspect that coming out of that will come an understanding of why there are massive black holes and how those black holes evolve and develop.
Right, and you know, as you know, the Hubble Space Telescope and all those great observatories out there are going to help try to answer some of those questions, and we're looking forward to, particularly when we get the James Webb Space Telescope up there. So.
Oh, that's right. You know, the Hubble Space Telescope has just it's just been unbelievable. You know, when I go around the country and give talks, you know, I am constantly amazed at how aware the public is of the Hubble Space Telescope and how much they value the Hubble Space Telescope and how much they appreciate the results that it's been providing and the pictures of the universe that it's sent our way.
Again, folks, you're seeing this live from the White House lawn. It's Astronomy Night. It's about science and education. I'm here with the very awesome, very cool Dr. Sally Ride. We've got more questions, and a lot of folks are signing in here just saying they wish they could be here. Well, you're here now, and don't forget to join us at 8 p.m. here in the White House when the President gives his remarks. Sally, we have, there's something really cool happening Friday morning. Something's going to impact the moon. But many folks are saying they don't know such about events until it's over. What can we do to get the word out there about this event?
Well, that is a really good point. So tell all your friends. Let's get the word out on Facebook and through every mechanism that we can, because this is going to be very cool. You know, Friday morning, and I think the latest I heard was that it's about 4:30 a.m. Pacific time, so about 7:30 a.m. Eastern time. You may have more recent information than I do, but the first thing that's going to happen is that an upper stage of a rocket is going to be purposely crashed into a crater on the south pole of the moon, and the purpose is to just create an explosion that blasts a whole plume of moon dust up into the air, and then to to look at that big plume of dust to see whether there's water in it. And that'll tell us for the first time whether there is water ice on the moon. And then shortly after that crash into the moon, there's a second planned crash of the spacecraft, one of the spacecraft that will be observing that first impact. And it will make a somewhat smaller impact, but another one. And those plumes that result from the explosion are going to be visible with relatively small backyard telescopes. So people are going to be able to see them. I'm sure it's going to be on NASA TV. There's going to be a lot of different ways that you can watch this.
And I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's going to be a sight.
It's going to be cool, and I think the Hubble Space Telescope is going to try to look at that.
I think that's right.
I don't know what's going to happen.
I think that's right.
You know, I'm getting responses here on Facebook, folks thanking the White House, thanking you for doing this, and for NASA, we want to thank the White House because this is very cool. We're coming to you. It's Astronomy Night. It's about science and education. Dr. Wright, a question from Christopher. What do you see is going to be happening in the space program, say, in the next 10 or 15 years?
You know, it's a really interesting question. I think there's a lot that's going to be going on in the space program in the next 10 or 15 years. We're going to be retiring the shuttle, the space shuttle, which, you know, of course, I love, in just about a year and a half. And NASA is in the process of building replacements for the shuttle and determining what the replacement for the shuttle should be. We're going to be continuing the human exploration program. Of course, we've got the space station that's up in orbit right now that has 6 people on board orbiting Earth as we speak here. And that program will continue for quite some time, returning all kinds of benefit both in terms of science and technology and exploration technologies. And then it's important not to forget about the Earth science part of NASA,
That's right.
the astronomy part of NASA. You mentioned the James Webb Telescope. That is a very cool telescope that'll be coming on to replace the Hubble telescope in the next several years. And we're expanding the Earth Science program again to be able to observe Earth and understand our Earth better than we do now. So there's a lot that's going on in NASA's future.
And you know,
very exciting.
It's very exciting. You make a good point. Not only does NASA look at space, but it looks at our own planet here, which is so crucial. You know, I tell my wife, I hope to still be at NASA when we finally answer that question, are we alone?
Oh, yeah. Won't that be an interesting day? Won't that be an interesting day?
Sally, Alexandra Flynn, my daughter would like to know, what is your favorite planet and why?
Well, my favorite planet is Mars. And that's probably a favorite of a lot of people.
Yeah.
But
Mine too.
and the reason is that it's the planet in our solar system that's the most like Earth. So it's the planet that I could imagine visiting one day, standing on, you know, driving a rover around the surface, exploring its canyons, exploring its volcanoes, and then most importantly, looking for evidence of past life, you know, past or current life. Mars is one of the places in our solar system that is the most likely, if there is life on a location in the solar system other than Earth, Mars is a good candidate, and we just don't know enough yet to know whether it's there, but we know that there's water on Mars,
right.
And where there's water, there is often life. So that's my reason for Mars.
You know, and you mentioned Mars. I work in the science directorate at NASA, and all of the cool things, Mars, you know, you've got the rovers, we've got the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and all of these spacecraft, and I really think there are going to be some answers coming up in the near future.
I think you're
really going to blow some socks off.
I think you're right. I think we're going to see it in just a few years.
You heard that from the White House Law. So you're right. We'll take this another question from Simone. If you could look in your crystal ball and make a wish for humanity, what would it be?
A wish for humanity. You know, I think that right now, my wish for humanity would be that we would come to come to an understanding about our own planet that was such that we understood how to take care of the planet and how to protect and preserve our own planet for future generations, and make sure that, that as we live here and enjoy the fruits of Earth, that we don't damage the planet for future generations.
Wow. Dr. Wright, Sally, thank you for joining us. We're going to, actually, we're going to have time for one more, so I'm jumping the gun here. See, that's what happens when you're excited. We're going to take this from Carl, who says, we were talking about the impact on the moon. Do you think that this may open up even more intriguing questions about water and the recent discovery that NASA announced a week or so ago about water on the moon?
I do, actually. I think that that this experiment, you know, if we don't see water, it's not definitive. It doesn't mean that maybe there isn't water ice somewhere else in some other crater on the moon. But if it does show water, then it'll be the first really conclusive, you know, be very conclusive proof that there is water, and probably a reasonable amount, in lunar terms, reasonable amount of water ice on the moon. And that'll be very exciting if that's the case.
Wow. Sally, you know, it's really good to see you again. It's been a while. It's always an honor and pleasure to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the White House. We're here on the lawn, Astronomy Night. Stay tuned, whitehouse.gov. The President will be making remarks. I want to thank the White House. All of you all surely are thanking them. We will see you later. And remember, always, science never sleeps.